That is a plaque from Goodyear Tire in recognition of 25 years of friendly relations. That plaque is probably from the 30s or 40s, and it's just kind of cool. Anyway, welcome back to the Foundry. I have embarked on a minor remodeling project in my offices and my executives' quarters. Now, I've gotten to the plumbing portion of the project where I will be replacing a couple of toilets, a faucet, that sort of thing. But before I can do that, I have to start at the source, which is the water line coming into the building. Now, I'm not a plumber, but I do pretend to be one in real life when the need arises. The need has arisen. Just let me show you what I'm working with here. So the water enters the building up through the shop floor. Let me move some of this junk so we can see. So this line right here is a 3/4 inch copper pipe. It goes all the way out to the meter. And then we have this T for our water spigot. This is a master shutoff valve, super handy to have. And then what we're gonna be doing, man, all this insulation. This is galvanized 3/4 inch. And this is the line that runs up the wall into the next building. Comes into here. We got about a 25-foot run and then another 50 feet back to the other side of the building above the office bathrooms and things like that. And this is the section that we're going to be replacing, is all the steel galvanized. And the reason we're replacing it is because it's 100 years old and it has rusted significantly inside. I've got rusty water in the office. It's starting to create a lot of sediment in the toilet tank, the water heater, that sort of thing. And you can see where I've had to patch it with some quick steel because it's gotten so thin from rusting out on the inside. And the reason I've had to add these little patches, ooh, that one just fell off, so we should see a leak here shortly. During the winter time, the 2-week winter that we get, that Southern man gets, this pipe is subject to freeze. Now I've mitigated that to an extent with some insulation, space heaters, keeping the water running, so forth. But it still happens when we, if we happen to get in the single digits, it's hard to keep it from freezing. And then when it thaws out, I discover I get pinholes in it and I have to go around and patch the pinholes. So I'm done with all this. We're gonna upgrade to a modern PEX pipe. So when I say it's 100 years old, you think I'm joking. I can see it in your eyes. And I'll admit that's a little bit hyperbolic, but not in the direction you think it is. Let me show you something. If you look right where that light's shining, you see Carnegie, USA. That is Carnegie steel. And if you know anything about your American history, you know how old that is. So now that I've brought the receipts, let's get started. Antique American-made craftsman. You can throw this wrench from across the shop and it'll stick to that pipe. Same as a rigid. It's one of these two or it ain't fit to use. All right, we got the line unhooked on the other side of that wall. Check out this makeshift ladder I found in the warehouse. I believe it was here when I moved in. It's very sketchy. I wouldn't recommend using it. So, we used to have a T here that went off into the office and there was a water fountain in there on the front wall. I unhooked that years ago after the line froze and had problems. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove this section here. That'll give us plenty of room to get through the wall. Actually, I think there's room to leave this and come through the wall. See, as a Juilliard trained plumber, I'm required to bring a certain level of professionalism to my work that my people expect and demand. And I'm not going to betray that trust. So we're going to do this as neatly as possible. So what I thought we would do is run the new line, you know, because PEX is all, you know, it comes on a roll, so it's not perfectly straight. It won't look just right, just thrown up there willy-nilly, all one long piece. So what I'm going to do is splice it appropriately, and I'm going to attach it to that existing line and run it nice and neat and zip tie it to that line all the way to its destination. So that's why I'm leaving the old line in place. Now that we're ready to start going in with the new material, I went to the depot, picked up a 100-foot roll of 3/4 inch PEX and the appropriate fittings that I plan on using, as well as some clamps, and we should have everything we need if all goes to plan. Now, my goal here is to go from the copper tube coming out of the ground all the way to the copper tube going into the office. So we'll have copper to PEX to copper, apart from my valves and a couple little galvanized T's. We'll have copper to PEX to copper and 0 rust. That's the goal. In case you were wondering, this is what 120 years of rust and barnacles in the water line looks like. And it's like this throughout the entire system. You know, the sad thing is I used to drink tap water, not for very long. I think I drank it for about a year. Just got tired of bottled water and that sort of thing. And I thought, you know, I wonder what's in this tap water. Now you expect some bacteria, animal fecal, all that's well and good, that's fine. But what you don't realize is they put a lot of chemicals in the water. And the one to really be, well, chlorine's not good for you either, but fluoride is a neurotoxin. And if you live in a locality that uses fluoride in the drinking water, man, I started getting brain fog, and I thought, you know, I just turned 40 at the time. I'm just getting old, what have you. But I finally got off of that tap water. I run it through a charcoal filter now, at least when I drink it. And the brain fog is really lifted, you know, quite a bit, and that's helpful for making these videos because you have no idea how hard it is to try to remember words, because I have a pretty colorful vocabulary, or I did, and I was losing that. I thought, man, what has changed in my diet or my environment? I got to thinking, I've been drinking tap water for a year. I got off that tap water, and I think it was for the better. Keeping it neat and orderly is proving to be difficult because this stuff was rolled up. I'm used to working with it in, you know, straight sticks, but given the distance we got to go with it, that wasn't practical. I had to get a roll. So I got some of these little clamps here, conduit clamps, and I think I'm going to make an attempt just to screw them to the wall, make it as straight and appealing to the eye as possible. When you're working with PEX, you don't want to run it over anything really sharp. So when you're dealing with things like this, that's what's known in the industry as unacceptable. That looks pretty good. It at least gives the illusion of professionalism. I will say, I'm not sure how much confidence I have in these clamps. I guess we're gonna find out. Let's go over into the other building and get started over there. All right, so my lighting in here is very subpar. It just got dark on me, but you kind of see what I'm doing here. So coming out of the building here, that wall that the white pipe's coming out of, I could have used another 90 there. If I really wanted to get sociopathic with it, I could have really strapped it to that pipe with another 90 instead of having that loop. But A, I didn't have another 90, and B, you know, the fewer the fittings, the better in my experience. And I think it really looks, yeah, presentable, and that's what we're going for. But I'm just following that existing water line, and every couple of feet I'm putting a zip tie, and they may give up at some point in the future, I don't know, but they'll last a very long time. I'm using high quality ties, so I'm just going to keep going. I got another probably 60 more feet to go by the time we make this 90 down here and go back toward the office. Since it's dark, you know, I'm not going to make you suffer through that, so I'll bring you back in when we do the tie-in. But yeah, so far it's turned out really well as far as how neat everything is coming together on that line. I wanted it to be presentable. If I just had an extra hand, I could make it perfect. But I'm working by myself. It's Valentine's Day, well, Valentine's Day night now, so there's zero chance anybody I know is going to be available. But all in all, I think it's coming along pretty good, so I'll bring you back in shortly. All right, so we're on the home stretch. We made it all the way across the warehouse, and we are about to tie in to the office water right here at this copper line. So I'm going to take and cut this line right here and try not to disturb this giant pile of raccoon dung that I did not know was up here. It's not good to stir that up and breathe it, so I got to be careful. And now, of course, it's raining, and as you can see, we're directly under a tin roof. So I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to show you, but I'll do the best I can. And I like to take a little emery cloth clean up that copper. This is the only quick connect fitting in the deal I'm going to use. I could have used them back there all along, but I don't know, I just felt like them permanent fittings were a little more permanent. So these are supposed to be good for copper too. Just make sure that's in there good. Feels good. Sorry, I got a flashlight in my mouth, so. Then we're going to trim this to about right here. And we should be able to go directly in with it, like so. All right, the moment of truth. Yeah, I'm suspect of that clamp. So it looks like it is leaking. I didn't really have the right pair of pliers to properly negotiate that. So I'm gonna have to revisit that. Let's check out my other clamps. And that's the only one I was really suspect of. That one up there is dry, that elbow. In addition to my initial clamp and fitting leaking at the valve, I came in here and this was spraying water every which way. And you may have noticed it in the video before where this was kind of loose, like it was pivoting on the copper tube. Well, I'm only a Juilliard trained plumber, see, so if you know more than I do, you probably knew that I didn't have that all the way up in there. But in my defense, I couldn't get it all the way up in there. So ended up going to Home Depot and purchasing the removal tool. It was very difficult. Whereas on the PEX, boy, it just popped right off. But on the copper, the issue is the outside diameter of this copper tubing is just a little bit larger than PEX, apparently. Even though I've got PEX quick connects down there that we put in 10 years ago without issue. For whatever reason, this fitting, it was just so tight I could not get the copper in there. So I popped the fitting back off and then emery clothed on it real heavy. Made sure there were no sharp edges or anything of that nature, and slid my fitting back on, and you could look down in there and see that there was just no way it would get past that O-ring. It was just too tight. So I sprayed a little WD-40 on that O-ring. Then I took this socket with the PEX out and slid it down in there to where I could tap on it with a hammer, and I was able to tap it past the O-ring without damaging the fitting. So if you just tap up here, you're going to screw up your this plastic piece. So anyway, I just tested it, and we're high and dry up here, and everything's tight. There's no need to stabilize it. Before, I had daisy chained some zip ties to try to stabilize it, and it was just an S show. So now that I got that on there, I had to race up to Home Depot before they closed and get this little tool. So while I'm in there, I ended up buying $50 worth of stuff that turns out I don't even need. I'm just thinking worst case scenario, they're going to close tonight. I got to have my water on. So I was buying different fittings, and I bought some 1/2-inch PEX to come up and maybe attach it up here. And while I'm up here, we'll look at that little logo right there. Inland steel, copper alloy. It's pretty interesting. So the skin on this building is largely inland steel, copper alloy tin, and it's also Granite City sheets. It's Granite City Copper and Bearing Company. Both of these are long defunct, obviously, but pretty interesting. Well, I decided to wait till morning to wrap this video up and show you the end result. Last night my camera battery died, and my B-roll camera does not handle low lighting situations very well, as you saw. I apologize for the crappy lighting in this video. My floodlight broke, and I worked by myself. It was all just a handful, but I did get the project done. I want to show you what I ended up with. So we talked about that quick connect fitting last night, but I never did make it back over here to the valve. I got a new clamp on there. This is the type of clamp I wanted to go with to start with, but I couldn't find these. So that's why I used this style, which ultimately didn't work right here. It could have been because I didn't have the right kind of crimpers to make this work. So I was just making do with what I had. But with these, you don't have to worry about getting it just perfect, because you use this specific tool and it gets it perfect every time. So that fixed our leak right here. And as we come into the main warehouse, of course our lighting has gone south on us yet again because it's starting to rain. I tell you, it's so hard to catch a wind. Anyway, we come through the wall, got our pipe all strapped up nice and tight against the original water line. Then we made the 50-foot trek all the way across the warehouse over to above the bathroom, one of the bathrooms over there. So it all worked out in the end. The project took a little bit longer than I had anticipated, but that's life. That's Foundry life. So now that this storm's rolling in, it's a good time to wrap it up, and I can get back to the rest of my remodel inside. I appreciate you hanging out, and I'll see you in the next one. I think I'm going to add new warehouse lights to my list. That way I can shoot a decent video in here for a change.